The most significant and impactful transits are those of Rahu Ketu, the nodes. They're coming up very shortly. That's what I talk about today. Hello everybody, I'm Tina Chaudhary. Welcome to my channel and a very warm namaste. Aham Brahmasmi. On October 30th, just in a couple of weeks, Rahu and Ketu are going to make their transits into the next zodiac signs. Rahu and Ketu are not real planets. They're virtual planets. They're the shadows of the moon. Rahu is the north node, so it's the north shadow of the moon, and Ketu is the south node, so it's the south shadow of the moon. They're virtual planets. They're considered the shadows of the moon. But we do in Vedic astrology consider them very important virtual planets. I'm going to keep referring to them as planets, even though they're virtual planets. So in this video, I'm going to keep referring to them as planets. So they're going to make a transit on October 30th. Now, Rahu currently is in the zodiac of Aries, and Ketu is currently transiting in the zodiac of Libra. Now, Rahu and Ketu, because they're shadows, they always move in a retrograde or a backward motion. So typically planets move forward and they move in the forward zodiac, but Rahu and Ketu are going to transit. So when they transit to the zodiac which is behind them. So Rahu is going to move backwards from Aries. It's going to move back to Pisces, and Ketu, it's like I said, it's in Libra. It's going to move backwards and it's going to go into the zodiac of Virgo. So just like your shadows always behind you, it kind of moves backwards. So Rahu, Ketu never move into the forward direction. When they transit, they always transit into the zodiac that's behind them. So Rahu, Ketu stay in the same zodiac for about 18 months. So they've stayed in the zodiacs that they are in, which is Aries and Libra, for about 18 months. And now they're getting ready to move into the backward zodiacs, and they're going to stay there for another 18 months. They're very, very impactful to us because they're the shadows of the moon. The moon is very impactful to us because the moon represents our mind, our emotions, our thought process. It is the moon which guides us what to do, what we want to do, what we like, what we don't like. And this is the shadow of the moon, both of them are. So that impacts how we think, our desires and our obsessions is what is guided by Rahu and Ketu. Now, when Rahu and Ketu transit, major life events usually happen in our lives. The slow-moving planets, which is Jupiter and Saturn and Rahu Ketu, because they stay in the same zodiac for a very long time, are usually what gives us the major events in our life. The fast-moving planets like Venus, Mercury, the Sun, and of course the moon is always very fast-moving, are what usually trigger the events also, but the slow-moving planets in conjunction with the fast-moving planets are what gives us the major events in our life. So whenever Rahu and Ketu make their transits, major life events will change or happen. And so it's very important always whenever the slow-moving planets transit, it's very important for us to look at where they're going to be, where they have been, and how they can impact us. Now, Rahu and Ketu don't have ownership of any zodiac sign. As an example, Venus has ownership of two zodiac signs, which is Taurus and Libra. So if Venus was transiting, for example, you would look at the zodiac signs of Taurus and Libra. The Sun has ownership of Leo. So every time we look at the Sun and its transit, you always look at where Leo is positioned. Rahu and Ketu don't have ownership of any zodiac sign because they're not real planets, they're virtual planets. So wherever Rahu and Ketu transit into, whatever zodiac sign they transit into, they just grab that energy of that house and make it their own. Rahu and Ketu typically are considered malefic planets. Yes, they do have the ability to give you a lot of good things in your life. They don't always give you bad events or challenging events in your life. They do always have the ability to give you good things in your life as well. So they don't always give you bad things. They do give you good things. But the way they do that is in conjunction with another planet. So wherever Rahu and Ketu are in your chart or where they transit to is where they grab the ownership of that house. Typically, it's believed that Rahu owns Aquarius, or it's kind of gives the impacts of Saturn type of impacts. So it sort of owns Aquarius, but Saturn always has prime ownership of Aquarius. And it's believed that Ketu behaves like Mars, so it has somewhat of a ownership of Scorpio, but Mars will always have prime ownership of Scorpio. So when you look in your chart to see where Rahu and Ketu are placed in whatever zodiac sign they're placed, you know that they've kind of seized that house and they're actually giving you the impact of that house in your chart. The planet that actually owns that house has less of a say in that house than Rahu and Ketu. So because they're malefic demon planets, they kind of seize that house's energy and start to give their own energy in those houses. I hope I've made that clear and it's not too confusing. Now, Rahu and Ketu are considered very karmic planets. Saturn is a karmic planet too, I've said in my so many videos, but Saturn is a very differently karmic planet. So how's the difference? So Saturn is karmic in the sense that it gives you the results of your karmas. It keeps track of all your karma, and then it's the bill that comes afterwards, right? You do all the good karma, you get a good thing. If you do bad karma, it's like the credit card bill that shows up. That's Saturn, keeping track of all your karma, good karma, bad karma. But Rahu and Ketu are connected, supposed to be connected to your past life. And those are the connectors. It's supposed to be where they're connectors to your past life. So Rahu denotes your karmic obsessions in this life. The reason for that is because in your past life you didn't get enough of that, and so wherever Rahu sits in your birth chart in this life is where your obsessions and extreme desires are in this life. Wherever Ketu is sitting in your birth chart in this life, that's where you're very uninterested in, and you have almost a detachment to, because it's believed that in your past life you've had too much of it, and so you come into this life and you just kind of don't have interest in it. So you need to take a look at your birth chart and see where Rahu and Ketu are placed in your birth chart. So you know where Rahu is placed, that's your current life's obsessions, extreme desires. And where Ketu is placed, you kind of have a disinterest or a detachment towards. Speaking of birth charts, I know a lot of my viewers don't probably have their Vedic astrology birth chart, so I'm going to help you out with that. And the reason for that is it's very important for you to have your Vedic astrology calculations birth chart in order to get very precise predictions based on this video, and I'm going to make another video. I'll talk about that. But I'll help you out in getting your Vedic astrology birth chart. So there is a link in my description box. You need to click that link and enter your birth details. The place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth is what you need to enter, and you can see that this is the link, but this is how it looks, but you can just click that link. You click it, you enter your details, and it will show your birth chart. Once you see this birth chart, you can actually see the top, the big birth chart on the top is what your birth chart is. But if you kind of scroll down below that, to below all the little charts that are the subsidiary charts, which you don't need to look at, you'll see all the planetary positions, and then you'll see where all your planets are placed. And then once you have that, you can actually listen to the rest of my video, which shows how this Rahu Ketu transit can impact you. Why is that? Now, Rahu and Ketu, like I said, don't own any house, but they impact the house they're transiting in. The other houses that they're going to impact are the trine houses. What is a trine house? A trine house is the houses that are 5th from it and the 9th from it. So you need to see what planets are in those houses in your chart, and then you'll get very, very, very precise predictions, because then you'll know exactly how this transit is going to impact you. I'm probably the only astrologer, maybe there'll be more after me, that are going to help you out like this. So make sure you first get your birth chart from that website if you don't have it already. If you have it, great. In this video, I'm going to tell you what are the impacts that you're going to have based on the planets that are placed in certain zodiac houses. Let's talk about the trine placements, or the trine zodiac. So since Rahu is in Pisces, the trine zodiacs would be from Rahu would be Scorpio and Cancer. And since Ketu is in Virgo, The trine zodiacs from Ketu would be Capricorn and Taurus. So if you have planets in any of these zodiacs that I mentioned, then you need to listen to the predictions based that I'm going to talk about in this video. So what are the possible general impacts that the Rahu Ketu transit that can have on us? So understand, Rahu and Ketu is a single demon. Rahu is only the head part of the demon. Ketu is the portion of the demon below the head, which is below the neck onwards. So Rahu has all the senses. All our senses are all in the head part, the seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing. So the five senses are always in the head portion. So Rahu has all the senses, so which is why it gets so materialistic. It wants to enjoy all the senses, and that's why it's obsessive, it's materialistic, because it has all the senses. It doesn't have a body, so it just doesn't know when to stop. So that's why it gets to the point of obsession. It wants things because it just doesn't have a stomach, and so it doesn't know when it's full. Technically, that's the best way I can explain it. It doesn't know when it's full, so it just wants to eat and consume and consume. So that's why Rahu is known to have some obsessive tendencies about it. So now Rahu is going into the zodiac of Pisces. Pisces denotes spirituality, religion, isolation, sleep. And so this is what we get a little obsessed about. So Rahu combined with the spirituality of Pisces is where a lot of us may get very spiritual or want to get a little spiritual. We're drawn towards spirituality. We're drawn towards religion. We also want to be very isolated from others. We prefer isolation. But this spirituality that Rahu gives us is not pure spirituality for spirituality reasons. It's for material desires. We may get spiritual because we want to achieve some material desires in our life. We may start going to religious institutions like temples and churches because we're praying to the divine for some material benefits. So a lot of this spirituality is not true, spirituality because you just want to leave everything and not be material. That's not how this spirituality works. So that's an impact that Rahu will have in Pisces. It's also the start of a new karmic cycle. So Rahu will now start a new karmic cycle for all of us. When it was in Aries, it was the end of certain things for us. A lot of things in our life probably closed out. We probably left a lot of things behind us. And now new karmic cycle it will start where we have new desires, new goals, new ambitions that Rahu gives us, depending upon where it's placed, what planet it's touching, which is why it's very important to listen to the rest of the section of the video. So it gives us these new desires, so a new karma starts. It could be new karma related to profession or relationships or other things will start. And one of the things is Rahu is going to give us all a very disturbed sleep pattern, because Pisces does represent sleep, but Rahu is very active at night. So a lot of us may have a lot of sleep issues at this time. And talking about Ketu represents true spirituality. Because it's only the body, it doesn't have head, so it doesn't have any senses associated with it. It's just the body. It just learns to live without the sense. It's a sense of detachment because no head, so no material desires. So it has a sense of detachment. So it focuses on karma that needs to be dealt with. And so when it goes into Virgo, and Virgo is the 6th zodiac of all the 12, and Virgo deals with things at the micro level. It's very detail oriented, but so is Ketu. Ketu is also dealing with things at the micro level. Now it brings out things at the small details of things that we needed to deal with. So Virgo represents our health. Virgo can represent our daily schedule, what we do. And Virgo can also represent some enmity. Virgo can represent legal battles, things that we don't like to deal with. So those are the things that Ketu now brings out and says, here, you need to deal with this karma. People may leave your life. You may have health issues that come up that you now need to handle. So it's the karma that you now need to deal with is what Ketu brings up. So here's a combination. The axis is saying, you need to deal with this karma and you need to start new goals. So it's kind of almost contradictory in a little way, but you just need to understand, everybody needs to understand what planets that they're activating in their birth chart. So you get a better grip of how exactly it's going to impact you. Maybe both of them are not going to have a major impact, maybe depending upon the planets that you yourself are getting activated, have more of a Rahu impact, or depending upon the planets that Ketu is impacting, maybe you have more of a Ketu impact, which is why I'm making two videos. You really need to see which planets are getting more impacted. Is Ketu impacting you more, or is Rahu impacting you more? Which is why I'm saying make sure you do your chart and then listen to the rest of it and see which planets, which one of Rahu Ketu impacts you more by touching which planets of yours. Which is why it's a little different when Rahu Ketu make the transit rather than Jupiter Saturn making transits. Now you need to see which part of your life gets more activated. Is it the starting of new karma or handling of some old karma that needs to get activated? So make sure you go through the exercise, figure out your birth chart if you don't already. Check which planets get touched by Rahu Ketu so you have a better idea of what you're going to deal with in the next 18 months. I'm going to move on and do my predictions based on the planetary touching of Rahu and Ketu. My first section is based on Rahu's impact over natal planets. And before I move on, I'm going to remind you, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe, because my next video is going to come out, which is going to be equally important on the Rahu Ketu transit. So please do subscribe, share this video with friends and family, and if you like the video, give me a like also. So the next section talks about Rahu touching your natal planets, and then the next section after that, I'll mention it, is Ketu touching your natal planets. So in your natal birth chart, if the sun is placed in the zodiac of either Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, then the transit of Rahu, you can expect some of these following impacts. The sun represents a name and fame, your ego, and above all, your soul. It also represents your father. So Rahu is the magnifier. It magnifies obsessions. It magnifies your desires. So at this time you could be obsessed about your name and fame. You may like to be visible or being seen publicly, and if you're in the field that relates to name and fame, you're certainly going to want to have a lot of that. As far as the health is concerned, the sun relates to visibility, so it relates to your eyes. And Rahu is a shadow, so your eyes could possibly get impacted. It depends on what other planets are impacting the sun. Also, your father's health could be impacted, or your father could be impacted in some way. And it again depends on the position of your sun and how well it's being impacted by the other planets in your chart. Now, because you're going to be very visible, because your visibility is going to get magnified because of the aspect of Rahu over the sun, maintain your dignity, morality, and make sure that you're always doing the right thing and you're always making the right choices in your life. Don't pick to do something that's going to not work out well for you, or it's going to impact how people view you, because that's going to get noticed as well. So behavior in public, you make sure that your behavior is impeccable in public, especially at work. Also, your ego, you need to watch your ego, especially at work with your seniors, because the sun does represent your seniors at work. Make sure you control your ego, because the Rahu is going to magnify that as well. Offering water to the sun and asking for its blessing and showing gratitude in the morning will be very beneficial for you during this transit. So if you have a moon in your natal chart placed in Pisces and even Cancer and Scorpio, then you can probably expect some of these results. So the moon represents our mind, our emotions, how we think. It also represents our mother or any mother-like women in your life. The moon also represents water-related activities, and it represents medicine and food as well. Now here we go. Rahu is considered a magnification, or a planet that multiplies or magnifies everything 1,000-fold. And it's also a shadow planet. It's a virtual planet, so it's considered a shadow. So when the moon and Rahu combine, then there's a shadow that goes over our mind and our emotions, and it's actually not a very good combination, because it kind of clouds our mind, so to speak. There's a shadow over our mind, so it can lead to some emotional issues. Maybe there's a confusion, the inability to make decisions or correct choices, because remember, there's a shadow that kind of goes over your mind and emotions. And so it can lead to a loss of focus. Your mind may wander and lack concentration, and your imagination actually goes wild and also be daydreaming a lot. So if you're in a creative type of field, this is actually positive because you think all these creative things, you're thinking outside the box, and all these wild ideas are coming through your mind. So it would be positive if you think in terms of that. And Rahu also represents foreign things, foreign places. So the desire to want to travel to foreign places, especially near the water, ocean, and rivers, because Pisces represents the water. And your mother may actually go through some health or emotional troubles as well. So it's not very good placement for your mother. Now, food, because the moon does represent food. So you may all of a sudden change your food habits. You may get obsessed about what you're eating. You may try to follow different fad diets or suddenly want to change how you eat your food or your diet. You may also buy and hoard different kinds of cooking vessels or kitchen gadgets, and then, like I said, get a little food obsessed. You may also cook large quantities of food and want to share your food with others. Remember, I said Rahu magnifies, it amplifies. So the food that you cook could be in large quantities, and then you may want to share it with others. On the flip side, it does give you sleep issues and a sleep disturbance. You may have a lot of difficulty falling asleep at night and then waking up in the morning. And this is especially true if your moon is in Pisces, because Pisces also represents the zodiac of sleep. So for those people that have the moon placed in Scorpio, then the impact could be felt a little more intensely, but in a more challenging manner. Like you could feel a lot more emotional issues, for example, because the moon debilitates in the zodiac of Scorpio. So the Rahu going over the natal moon is a bit of a challenge at the emotional level. Now, some of the remedies that you can do is make sure you're drinking lots of water during this transit. Also, meditation helps a lot. So you can definitely do those to kind of overcome any emotional issues that you experience. So if you have Mars placed in the zodiac of Pisces or Cancer or Scorpio, then these are the impacts you may feel when Rahu transits in the zodiac of Pisces. So Mars represents our physical body, the energy we have, the vitality, and also the blood in our body. At the negative level, it denotes anger, fighting, and violence. And Rahu is not a planet, it's a virtual planet, so it just magnifies everything. So that's the job of Rahu, is to just be the magnifying glass and magnify all the significations of the planet that it impacts. So when Rahu and Mars come together, sometimes it can lead to very challenging impacts because it amplifies the negative impact of Mars, which is the ability to, or the tendency to get very aggressive. It gives a lot of anger and ego issues, and also gives the tendency to pick up fights unnecessarily. This is something you're going to have to manage through this transit. Mars is very protective about things. Mars is what gives us the ability to be protective about ourselves, our family, about everything that we own. And so Rahu becomes very obsessive about this protectiveness that we have. So that's what it gives us, the tendency to start fights and get into definitely, like I said, fights and violence with other people about things that we're protective about. On the flip side, the good thing is that we get very active. We get a lot of good energy, so we get focused on the physical body, and we may start to increase physical exercise, workout, and it gives us a very good sense of energy and vitality in the body. So at the same time, when we're doing that, we become accident prone as well. So you have to be very extra cautious while you're driving, operating any machinery, working with sharp objects, but also while you're doing the workouts, this extra workout you're doing, you have to be very careful you don't get hurt doing that. Also, Rahu may exaggerate the impatience and impulsiveness of Mars, so you have to guard against that as well. Now, one of the other significations of Mars is that it represents real estate or land. So Rahu may exaggerate the tendency or the desire to own land or buy real estate or buy and sell real estate. This transit may give you a little bit of an obsessive tendency to get into some real estate transactions. The other things Mars represents is electrical items, so some of you may get into buying a lot of electrical items, hoarding them. On the flip side, the health could be impacted also. Like I said, definitely a little bit on the accident-prone side. But if you have the tendency for blood-related diseases and issues, that can happen. And those could be like blood pressure issues. It could also be infections, blood-related infections. So you have to guard against that. If you're prone to that, make sure you get checked up. One more representation of Mars is your brothers, or actually very close friends can also be represented by Mars. So there could be some relationship issues with those people. You need to manage your relationship with them, or they could have experienced some issues in their life as well. The one good thing about this is that if you were having old legal issues that were going on, then they will get resolved to your satisfaction. But you have to really make sure you don't get into any new legal issues or actions, because that can be, pretty challenging for you. If you have Venus placed in the zodiac of Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, then you can probably expect the following impact when Rahu transits in the zodiac of Pisces. So the two primary significations of Venus are relationships and finance. And Rahu is signifying obsessions and desires. And so what do you think you get when you put those four magical things together? Well, obviously, Rahu is going to create an obsessive desire to get or earn a lot of money. And now that can be good, or it can be very challenging. It depends on how you handle this transit's energy. Now, if this obsessive desire gives you, and you look for, in a healthy way, you look for opportunities of earning a lot of money, yes, you can get a lot of money. It's positive from a financial standpoint. It could be challenging if you're looking for those opportunities and you go and try to get money in the shortcut way, in the scam sort of way. Then it can give you very negative results as well. So Rahu does kind of encourage getting things no matter what way. It doesn't care about scruples. It doesn't care about rules. It'll go after something what it wants. So in this case, Rahu's going to encourage you to go after getting money in however you can get it. It doesn't care about the rules, and it doesn't care about honesty. So I'm just warning everybody that you need to make sure that if you're going to go after getting more money, or even relationships, you need to make sure you're staying honest, you're staying, the correct, do it the correct way. Don't go through the shortcuts, or don't go through something that's not legal or dishonest. That can have very disastrous results after the transit is over. So this transit also gives you an obsessive desire for luxury items, goods, and especially those related to beauty and fashion products. Those are typically the luxury items. Also, you may spend a lot of money and buy those luxury items, and also the desire sometimes to buy an expensive car or something like that. And when you do buy those things, you may want to buy them, giant size, the big size stuff, because Rahu represents big things. So you may want, when you buy things, you may buy them in very big sizes. This transit, like I said, and I mentioned before, can give you financial ups and downs. So you need to really manage your expenses very carefully, because you're going to forget what your income is, and you're just going to start spending on your desires. So this is a transit where you really have to watch your finances very carefully, because the desire to purchase a lot of things, a lot of luxury items, is going to be very obsessive. So you need to really manage that. The other caution is regarding relationships. The relationships have a tendency to get disturbed. Rahu tends to make you look outside your current relationship, and likes to look outside and look at everybody else. So Rahu is the distraction outside the box. So if you're happily married, or if you're in a relationship, curtail the tendency to look outside. Make sure you're good in your relationship. Don't disturb that relationship. So Rahu-Venus combination promotes having a love relationship with somebody that's different from yourself, that they could be different as far as ethnicity, religion, race, or whatever. So that's, if you're looking for love, that actually might happen as well. You get into a relationship with somebody that's very different from you. So if your natal Mercury in your birth chart is placed in the zodiac of Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, this is some of the possible impacts that you can have when Rahu transits in the zodiac of Pisces. Overall, Mercury represents communication, the IT world, computers, finance, banking, and also travel and transport. And Rahu, of course, is are famous for obsession, the obsessive tendencies, and the magnification tendencies. So here we go. It's going to start doing the magnification, obsessiveness about all those things that Mercury represents. So the desire to communicate via writing or speaking in public platforms such as social media sites, you're going to get obsessive about that. You're going to go on social media sites and start talking and writing stuff. You have to be very cautious that you don't use bizarre hate speech, abusive speech, because Rahu is very famous for saying things outside the box and causing quite a stir. That can get you in trouble. Also, Rahu and Mercury combination also represents a lot of gossip and starting rumors. Need to obviously stay away from that. It can get you in trouble as well. The financial management and investment planning in your mind, you're going to get a little obsessive about that. And then the only thing I'm going to say is don't fall prey to the get rich quick schemes and scams, because Rahu does represent scamsters, fraudsters, and people that come and, scam you. Mercury also represents social circles, so you might get a little obsessed about making a lot of new friends, a lot of new contacts, and it's the social media. So a lot of you may become a little social media obsessed, or you may be spending a lot of time either talking on the phone or just being on your phones or whatever, and going on social media sites and just spending or wasting a lot of time on social media sites. This is definitely a combination for that. As far as relationships are concerned, so Mercury represents your female siblings or the maternal side of your family. So there could be some disturbance in those relationships. Those could come to focus right now, or the people that represent your female siblings or the maternal side of your family could also experience disturbance in their own life. Now, as far as health is concerned, Mercury represents your skin and nervous system. So you could experience eczema type of issues with your skin if you're prone to that. Also, if you're prone to any nervous kind of issues, nervous disorders or something, these can definitely flare up at this time. So Mercury represents all communication electronic devices, which could be phones, iPads, computers, things like that. And so now you will have this obsessive tendency to buy more of these, maybe even hoard them, like multiple items of these. You may start out and go buy them. But on the flip side, the ones that you do have may break, malfunction, or something may happen to them. So you may go out and continue to buy these more and more electronic devices, or you may just buy them because you're obsessed about the new ones coming out, and then you continue to spend money buying electronic items as well. So if your natal Jupiter is placed in the zodiac of either Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, then some of the impact that you may expect to see when Rahu is transiting in the zodiac of Pisces. So Jupiter represents our gurus, our dharma, spirituality, religion. And Rahu, being a demon planet, is going to transit over a planet that signifies all things good. And that's what Jupiter represents, is doing things the right way, absolute right way of doing things. And then Rahu is a planet that signifies just the opposite, which is, let's just get this stuff done. I don't care about whether it's right or wrong. And so when Rahu goes over a planet, which is as pure as Jupiter, the main object of it is let me disturb the energy of Jupiter. Let me see how I can stir the pot and make Jupiter not do things the right way. So either the right way or in a new or a different way. And so maybe you do get spiritual or religious or dharmic, but you want to do it in a new way, or you may want to find new ways to practice your religion or your spirituality. And so you may start looking for new gurus, new teachers to follow for your spirituality. You may start to look into new ways to do that, new ways to be spiritual. So just a word of caution at this time that when there's a Rahu-Jupiter combination like this, it's very easy to get duped by fake gurus and people that are not really spiritual, and then you get fooled into thinking that they're the right guru, right teacher for you, right mentor for you. And so you need to be a little cautious of who you start following or who you make your mentor or guru. because it's very easy to get fooled by somebody. So just be cautious about that. And so you might also want to travel to religious places, especially those that are on the banks of any waters, oceans, rivers, because Pisces is a water sign. So you may want to travel to these places, religious places, because you want to find something new in your spirituality, in your quest for spirituality. Also, as far as health is concerned, Jupiter signifies your breathing, and Rahu is smoke. So there's a chance that you do get into, if you've had breathing issues before, then there's a chance that they do get aggravated, because smoke and breathing don't go well together. So asthma or any glandular issues like diabetes, thyroid kind of issues do get aggravated, because those are signified by Jupiter, and Rahu is very contradictory to those kind of health things. So that those can get aggravated during this time. Jupiter represents learning of new things, and so Rahu likes new things. So you may be tempted to learn new things, something foreign. It could be a foreign language, it could be foreign, anything new that you may be tempted to learn. So, that's something very positive that you can take advantage of during this transit. If any one of you was looking to move to a foreign country to further education or to get education, this is an excellent transit. Of course, it depends on your birth chart, but this is a good transit, a positive transit for that indication as well. So if you have your natal Saturn in the zodiacs of Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio in your birth chart, and so these are the possible impacts you can see when Rahu transits in the zodiac of Pisces. Now, one thing we have to understand that both Saturn and Rahu are very karmic planets, but they deal with karma very differently. Saturn gives you the result of your past karma, and Rahu is the karmic point of your birth chart. This indicates your obsessions and desires of this life. So, right now, when Rahu transits over your Saturn, it's going to give you the result of your karma, of your past karma. So whatever kind of karmas you've been doing in the past, it could be the past of the current life as well as the past life. That's the result you're going to see. So it's going to be very different for different people. It could be very good, very beneficial depending upon your past karma, or it could be a little bit challenging depending upon the kind of karma that you have incurred. But most of the karma that we're talking about here is going to be related to your career and profession, because Saturn rules career and profession primarily. So one of the things that does is Saturn is a very hardworking planet. So your work and job responsibilities will definitely increase. Reason for that is that Rahu magnifies or amplifies whatever that planet signifies. Saturn signifies hard work, dedication, responsibilities. So Saturn's going to magnify that. Rahu's going to magnify that. Rahu is also the significator of new things, thinking outside the box. So you may think of implement new and innovative ways to change how you do things at your job, at your tasks, and you're going to come up with new ways. So that's a very positive aspect of this transit. Also, you're going to have the desire to grow or even change your profession. And your desire will be to either work for a very large corporation, have a very large title, have a very large job, or even a large office that you sit in. So these are some of the significations that Rahu brings to Saturn, because Rahu signifies very large, big things. So rather than working for a smaller organization, you may want to work for a larger organization. Also, the desire to work for a foreign or overseas organization is going to be very prominent, because Rahu signifies foreign things, things that are not the same as where you are, something different, something foreign. And so that means that some people may actually relocate due to their career or change their careers and professions. And some of people may actually have a very, very big desire to relocate to a foreign country for their work. If your own birth chart indicates that there is the chance that you will move abroad for work reasons, then this might be the transit that makes you do that, but it depends on the dasha that you're currently in. As far as health, there could be issues of digestive and gastric issues. So stay away from salty, oily, processed foods, and that would help in that. Also, there could be some aches and pains in the lower legs and joints. So take care of that as well. So hopefully some of you watched the section where I talked about Rahu touching your natal planets. And in the next section, I'm talking about Ketu touching your natal planets, and hopefully that will be helpful to you as well. So if you have Sun in Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn in your natal birth chart, then you can probably expect some of these results when Ketu transits in Virgo. So the Sun is your soul, and it's also indicative of your father or government agencies, but Ketu is also indicative of spirituality. It's a deep thinker, and it works with the small details, and it works at the micro level. So when the Sun is impacted by Ketu, it makes you introspect within yourself to find out what your true soul desire is, because the Sun, like I said, is your soul. Ketu is spirituality. So when you put your soul and spirituality together, it kind of makes you think about what your inner joy and your soul's desire is, and then you may actually want to pursue that soul's dreams and desires. And then one of the things it does is it wants you to withdraw and become, you prefer isolation rather than be in the public eye. The Sun is visibility, and you want to be in the public eye, you want to be out in the public and be seen. But the Ketu over the Sun makes you withdraw into isolation. And I mentioned the Sun represents your father. So there's some issue with your father may come up. There could be detachment or relationship issues with the father. Alternatively, your father could, go through some trouble. It could also relate to trouble with the government if that applies in your chart. You yourself could have some trouble relating to government matters. If your Sun is well placed, you could receive some benefits from the government. So it depends very much on how your Sun is placed in the birth chart, whether it's well placed or it's placed in a challenging situation. Now, you could also have some eye troubles like cataract surgery or something like that if it applies to you. Obviously, not everybody has that. So it depends on your age as well. And so depending a lot on how your Sun is placed in your chart, you could see some very positive results or maybe a few challenges. There's one more signification in that Sun represents your bosses and your seniors at work, and Ketu represents withdrawing within yourself, going into isolation, not wanting to share things with others. And so don't fall into the trap of not sharing with your bosses and seniors, withdrawing into yourself and staying away from them. Just try not to do that. It might harm your career. So just kind of don't do that with your bosses and seniors. Stay in touch with them. Don't fall into the Ketu trap and withdraw into yourself and, at work at least. But overall, this makes you introspect very deeply and makes you want to pursue your soul's desire. So use this transit wisely. Think about what you really want, what makes your soul happy, and then try to pursue it without too much of a challenge. If your natal moon in your birth chart is placed in Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, this is probably some of the impacts that you can see when Ketu transits in the sign of Virgo. So the moon represents our mind, emotions, thoughts, desires, and it even represents food. But Ketu represents separation. Ketu has a lot of separative quality, and it also represents the shortening of things, because when you separate something, that object shortens or becomes very small. So it has shortening and minimizing qualities. So your mind and your mental thought process is going to want to separate you from whatever you have going on right now. So one of the things, the moon represents your motherland. So people that are trying to relocate to a foreign country, this could be a combination that actually gets you to move or relocate somewhere. If you don't relocate, then there's a very good chance that during this transit, you do a lot of traveling to different places. The other signification of the moon is your mother. So there could be some relationship issues that you experience with your mother, or your mother may actually, experience some issues in her life as well. The moon does represent food as well. So there's a loss of appetite that you experience. You also maybe lack of interest in food, I should say, and then a decrease in appetite also. And then you become very body conscious, which means that you're eating very little. A lot of people may also leave food unfinished on their plates. So very diminished appetite at this time, no interest in food. The main impact that it's going to have, and this is definitely the main impact, is that you have a very heightened sense of intuition and instinct of what's going to happen, or, maybe a feeling of deja vu also. And also, you're going to feel an inclination towards religion, spirituality, dharma, because that's what Ketu represents, spirituality, and the moon is your mind and emotions. So that's what you're going to get attracted towards. You're going to have a disinterest in the materiality of life and more attraction towards the spirituality of life, or the way to, lead a more spiritual life as opposed to a more material life. That's definitely some of the indications of this transit. If you do have any emotional issues, I'm recommending that you do lots of meditation, mantra chanting, and drink lots of water. Moon represents water, and that's very beneficial during this time, especially if you're experiencing some emotional issues. Sometimes a moon Ketu combination can give some emotional issues. The fact that you feel torn between things, torn in relationships, you don't know what to do because you're kind of getting torn between your spirituality, wanting to do spiritual things, as opposed to getting torn in relationships. So sometimes that feeling occurs as well. So drink lots of water, meditation, mantra chanting, like I said, and that's going to be very beneficial for you. So if you have Mars in your natal birth chart in the zodiac of Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, then you can probably expect some of these impacts when Ketu transits in the zodiac of Virgo. This is a challenging combination because Ketu and Mars together are sorts a little bit malefic in nature. The reason for that is that Ketu behaves like Mars, especially when it's with it, then it enhances the qualities or the malefic qualities of Mars. So Ketu has separative tendencies, and Mars is a fiery planet, so it has some aggressive tendencies. So when they both come together, there's a fiery aggression that kind of gets exaggerated in the individual. So you have to be very careful during this transit. And not only in terms of attitude and how you behave, how you control your anger and your attitude, but also sometimes how you take care of your health, because Mars does represent your body, your physical body, and your blood, and Ketu represents separation, so or cuts. So you have to, like I said, take care of your attitude as well as your health. There's a possibility of getting injured with blood loss. Also, if you were waiting on certain things in your health, you're waiting to decide if you're going to have surgery or not, this is the time you probably have surgery. Typically, Ketu Mars combinations give surgery. If not everybody in the world is going to have surgery, I don't want to scare anybody. But if there was something that you were putting off for a long time or you were needing, this is probably the time that you'll have it done. Also, if you experience blood pressure issues or heart issues, then this is the time that they probably get flared up. Make sure you get checked up. Everybody's not going to have it. I'm just going to say it. If you're prone to that, and if you're at that age, then there's, the chances that it exaggerates at this time. As far as the aggression and anger, you need to be very, very cautious of that, because it can bring on very undesirable results also, because you're going to start all kinds of fights, and then they can really escalate out of control very, very quickly. So don't take this lightly when I say that. Now, Mars does represent real estate and land, so there could be some property, real estate issues also that occur during this time, depending upon the combination of Mars in your chart, where it's placed, and how your dasha antardasha is going on. So Mars represents your brothers and very close friends who you kind of treat as your brother. So and Ketu has the separative tendency, so there could be a disturbance in the relationship with your brother's very close friends as well. Sometimes that could be due to real estate issues also within families, but again, you need to manage the relationship with these people. And also sometimes your brothers or your close friends could also experience some issues in their life as well. And then Mars represents electrical items. So they could go out in your house. You could have problems with them. So you kind of have to watch out for those kind of things as well. Mainly take care of your attitude and aggression during this time. If in your natal birth chart, Mercury is placed in the zodiac of Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, then you can probably see some of these impacts that I'm going to mention when Ketu transits in the zodiac of Virgo. So let's take a look at what Mercury represents. It represents a communication at all levels and all different kinds, which would mean the written, verbal, and so it also means the social media, because that's all about communication, and also represents finance and banking. The main signification of Ketu, however, is to move towards spirituality. Ketu does not have a head, so it doesn't think of all these things. It doesn't have a mouth, so it has nothing to do with communication. Hence, Mercury and Ketu are very contradictory in nature. And so all of the things that Mercury represents, Ketu wants nothing to do with. Therefore, your communication style may change. And in fact, you may withdraw from your friends. Mercury also represents your friends. So you may actually withdraw from social media sites and from your friends and prefer isolation rather than communicate with a lot of people. You may also lose interest in financial, monetary matters, and you may have a sense of carelessness about it. As long as it's coming, the money's coming, you're okay, but you may lose an interest in earning a lot of money or a lot of material desires. You may become very critical of others. Now, why is that? Because Mercury and Ketu both are very detail oriented planets. Ketu thinks at the micro level. Mercury is very detail oriented. So all of a sudden, you're going to get stuck in the nitty gritty details of everything that you do, which makes you very critical of others. And that's also going to make you a perfectionist. So you're also going to focus on the small details, expect them from others, and then become very critical of others. You need to guard against that tendency, because that's what's going to cause some separations in your life. Ketu has separative tendencies. Mercury also represents learning, and Ketu represents foreign languages, but Ketu also represents things that are in short or detailed. So you may get interested in learning either a foreign language, or if you're in the related field, you may get interested in learning something like computer coding, which is the short form of communications. Mercury represents your sisters, also your maternal side of relatives. So you need to be very careful about how you manage those relationships with the Ketu-Mercury combination, because like I mentioned, Ketu does have separative tendencies, and that Mercury-Ketu combination is going to, get you stuck in the nitty-gritty details. You're going to become very perfectionist. You become very critical of others, and your speech can actually get very sarcastic as well. So you need to manage those communications. Otherwise, there could be distancing in those relatives, or those relationships, I should say. There is also the possibility that there is a disturbance in the lives of your sisters, as well as the female relatives on your maternal side as well. So if your natal Venus in your birth chart is in the zodiacs of Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, then you can probably expect some of these impacts when Ketu transits in the zodiac of Virgo. So Venus primarily represents our relationships, and also represents finance, money. The desire for luxuries is more like it. And Ketu is exactly the opposite. Ketu is a spiritual planet. It has no interest in materiality of life. It's only very interested in spirituality. So they're very opposing energies, very contradictory in nature. So Ketu is going to make you lose interest in all the Venus-related items, which is the desire for money, materialistic pleasures. That's going to go down. You're not going to be interested in all those things. You're not going to be interested in relationships anymore. In fact, there could be a lot of distancing that comes in love and marriage relationships. Depending upon which house Ketu and Venus are placed in, there could be distancing in relationships with other people in your life as well, not just the marital partner or your love relationship. And for those people that are experiencing some trouble in their marriage, and the dashas support it and your chart supports it, separation, a Venus Ketu can actually give you separation from your marriage as well. But it depends a lot on your chart and the dashas and the chart details. So everybody's not going to have that, definitely. Alternatively, if you're not married but you are in a relationship, Ketu can actually also give you marriage during this time, because it does activate Venus. So not only does Ketu cause separation, but if you're not attached, it can also cause marriage. So it's a very common myth that Ketu only causes separation. Yes, it can give marriage as well. So at an overall level, Ketu Venus combination just gives you the attitude of not caring too much about others, but not in a bad way, but it gives you a sense of detachment from others where, you're more into spirituality, you're not so much getting stuck into relationships. Also, the spirituality that I'm talking about is you're getting very attracted to spirituality, and if you do, then the tendency to follow a guru or spirituality is where you try to, you're attracted to following goddesses because Venus does represent goddess. So no matter what religion you follow, you may be very attracted towards a goddess, or you may start, following that goddess or doing, mantra practice or praying to a certain goddess. That's happens during a Venus Ketu transit as well. As far as health is concerned, Venus relates to the reproductive organs in women, the lower bowels in men, and so you can have some trouble relating to that. If you have been experiencing problems in the past with that, then the Venus Ketu combination sometimes causes a medical procedure that you get done in your reproductive organs, lower bowels, and stuff like that. So if your natal Jupiter in your birth chart is in the zodiac signs of Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn, then you can probably expect some of these impacts when Ketu is transiting in the zodiac of Virgo. So Jupiter represents our dharma, spirituality, our gurus, and religion. And Ketu represents the exact same thing. Ketu represents spirituality as well. Ketu has nothing to do with the material world. Ketu has nothing to do with material desires. It only wants spirituality. And so Jupiter kind of represents the same thing. And so when they come together, you can only expect that a person gets very, very drawn towards their spirituality, religion, even some mystical studies such as, tarot, astrology, and yoga, everything that, your religion or spiritual, anything that's attached to religion and spirituality, I should say. You kind of maybe even look out and look for a new spiritual guru whose teachings and energy that you could get drawn to. You start looking for somebody to follow. You start looking for new things that you can do in your spirituality, what else you can learn in spirituality, what else you could learn in your religion. And so you get very drawn in all that aspect of your life. You almost are away from materiality and everything related to luxuries and all of that aspect of your life. Jupiter is all about learning. So this is a time when you want to learn about religion and spirituality, and you may even travel to go to places, to learn these things. You may travel to religious places as well. Now, the only thing that you have to be careful is with your health, because sometimes Ketu is not the best for health. Jupiter represents your breathing, nose, respiratory system. Jupiter also represents anything to do with glands. So it could be diabetes or thyroid issues. And Ketu is going into the zodiac of Virgo. So Virgo represents health problems and any kind of diseases. So if your chart shows that you do have the tendency for diabetes or asthma or any respiratory kind of issues, then this time, this transit would probably bring on those conditions at this time. Now, I just want to make sure everybody doesn't think they're going to get asthma or diabetes. Your chart has to show that you're prone to that and that, you have that propensity to get that. So don't want everybody to be scared, but that's just if you have that combination in your chart, or if you've known that you have those issues, then you just need to watch for your health. Take care of your health at this time. Make sure you get checked out. Also, one last thing, you're probably going to prefer isolation because you want to be more spiritual, maybe be a little more religious, less interested in socializing with people, meeting people, because you're more interested in spirituality and finding peace within yourself. So that's one of the other things that this transit probably makes you feel like. So if you have a Saturn placed in the zodiacs of Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, then you can probably expect some of these impacts when Ketu transits in the zodiac of Virgo. Now, Saturn is mainly the significator of our career and our profession. And Ketu signifies a lack of interest or a sense of detachment with whatever the planet that it's, the significations of whatever planet it's coming in contact with. So now Ketu will make you feel either disinterested or detached from your career and profession. And Ketu does have separative tendencies, so there could be separations from your career profession, and this could be a result of you wanting to be detached from what you're currently doing or very disinterested in what you're doing, and you're looking for changes because you're just so fed up of what you're doing. You feel that's not the right thing for you to do, and so there could be separative tendencies, and then you could separate from your career or profession for new changes. Or you may just simply take a break from your current job. A lot of times, Saturn-Ketu combinations makes people leave what they're doing. They want to quit their jobs and try something else, or just get a break from their career and profession. That's very, very possible. The other possibility is that people relocate as a result of either changing their job or just because of some change in their profession, career, where there's a tendency to make great changes in their careers because of the lack of satisfaction, lack of interest, or just a general dissatisfaction with how your career and profession is going. My only guidance to you is don't do anything impulsive in your career profession. Don't make impulsive choices. Don't quit impulsively. This is a passing phase. This is not a permanent phase. I've seen too many people do something impulsively, regret later. Now, as far as health is concerned, Ketu rules the back and Saturn rules your legs. So there's possibility that you could have extreme issues with your lower legs, and also your back and neck. Take care of yourself while working out, physical workout, climbing stairs. Ketu is a good one for people falling downstairs. So take care of yourself, legs, neck, back. Make sure there's no issues. Like I said, take good care of yourself. And the one last thing is Ketu is in Virgo, and Virgo does denote debts and loans. So be very cautious about not taking on too much debts and loans. Saturn denotes longevity or delays. So if you do take on too much, it will be very hard or take very long for you to pay it off. So be very cautious about how much loans and debts situation that you get into at this time. Now, the critical part that everybody asks is, what if Ketu goes over Rahu, or Rahu goes over Ketu, or Ketu goes over Ketu, or Rahu goes over Rahu? So that is indicative of a completion of a karmic cycle, especially if Rahu and Ketu go over each other. So as I mentioned, Rahu is the head, Ketu is the body. And so when either Rahu goes over Ketu or Ketu goes over Rahu, it's the completion of the demon's body. So the head and the body come together, which means that it's the completion of one karmic cycle. And so that means that you've completed all the prior karma, and now a new karmic cycle will begin. Everything becomes very clear to you. You have no more illusions. There's no more confusion. And then now you can begin your new karmic 18-year cycle. Something new will start if that happens. It can be different things. You need to check your other planets, what other planets are getting impacted, to see what new things can begin. But you'll notice that a major part of your life may have ended, and now a major new life event can start at this time. Your current dasha plays a big role in your life as to what starts, what ends. So also check all your other planets to see what other planets are getting impacted. For example, if Saturn's also getting impacted, it could be career. If Venus is getting impacted, it could be a relationship. But normally, when Rahu and Ketu come together, then it's the end of a 9 or 18-year karmic cycle, and the new karmic cycle starting. So make clear goals on how you want to move forward, because you will not be confused anymore. Things will become very clear to you on how you want to proceed further. And that's the best guidance I can give you at this time. With this, I come to the end of my video. I hope everybody has a wonderful transit. Good luck, and I'll see you on my next video. Goodbye for now.